Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a fascinating and honestly deeply relatable topic. We're looking at the biological glitch that is quietly paralyzing the lives of former gifted kids. So if you've ever felt completely stuck while everyone else seems to be effortlessly moving forward, you're definitely in the right place. Let me hook you with a quick question, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself here. Do you feel that specific dull ache of doing absolutely nothing while you just sit there and watch peers, people you know aren't naturally as talented or as quick as you, get promoted, start businesses, and actually build their lives? It's like this persistent, heavy hum in the background of your mind, constantly whispering that you're running out of time and you haven't even started. Okay, let's dive into this. To get you unstuck, we're going to use a structured clinical roadmap to completely cure that paralysis. Here's our agenda. We'll start with the curse of potential, move through the biological glitch and the perfectionism trap, break down the timeline illusion, and then finish up with a specific rewiring protocol and the freedom of average. Section 1. The curse of potential, or why doing nothing hurts so much. So picture what happens when you try to start a task. You find yourself completely trapped inside your own head, right? You're analyzing every single possible move until the sheer weight of anxiety forces a total shutdown. People often mistake this stuck state for laziness. But actually, look at the stark contrast. Laziness is choosing to do nothing and feeling perfectly fine about it. What you are experiencing is paralysis. You do nothing, but you feel this agonizing, quiet shame. You feel like a total fraud. It's kind of like being a rough draft of a human being that's never going to be published. You're just hoarding all this ability inside while the world literally passes you by. And this usually traces back to an invisible prison built a long, long time ago. Words like gifted, brilliant, so much potential. For a lot of us, those childhood compliments actually became a massive unpayable debt. Because you were told your whole life you were meant for great things, your baseline for success became impossibly high. Suddenly being average is just completely unacceptable, which makes the prospect of trying your absolute hardest and discovering you might just be ordinary utterly terrifying. Which brings us to Section 2, the biological glitch. It's not laziness, it's neuroscience. If we took someone experiencing this paralysis and put them in an fMRI machine the exact moment they thought about starting a big project, their brain wouldn't look lazy at all. It would look absolutely terrified. And this brilliantly illustrates what we call an amygdala hijack. Basically, when you face the possibility of failure, your primitive alarm system literally cannot tell the difference between a physical predator in the wild and a psychological threat to your ego. So when you open a blank document, your brain floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline, screaming danger. This triggers a literal physical freeze response. You aren't just putting things off, you're a deer caught in the headlights of your own towering expectations. Section 3, the perfectionism trap. Let's look at why you scroll and why you stall. When your nervous system is completely overwhelmed by that invisible, crushing threat we just talked about, it desperately searches for an escape hatch. Endless scrolling on TikTok or Reddit? Yeah, that isn't actually entertainment. You're doing it because it acts as self-medication, a numbing mechanism that provides a tiny, cheap dopamine hit which quiets your anxiety for exactly 3 seconds at a time. But doing this for hours causes a massive dopamine baseline crash. You are literally burning out your brain's reward center on things that don't matter, leaving you with absolutely zero chemical drive to pursue the real goals that actually do. The absolute crucial point here is understanding the defense mechanism at play. Traditional imposter syndrome is a reaction to success. You feel like you somehow tricked everyone into thinking you're competent, but you are experiencing reverse imposter syndrome. It attacks you before you even begin, just to protect a very fragile identity. You subconsciously sabotage your efforts at the last minute, like waiting until the very last second before a deadline so you have the excuse that you rushed it, just to avoid the terrifying discovery that giving 100% of your effort might result in something ordinary. Next up, Section 4, the timeline illusion and the math of starting late. We really have to talk about that specific, suffocating grief that hits you on your birthday or on New Year's Eve when you look around and compare yourself to someone 5 years younger who has achieved the exact thing you wanted. Let's walk through this timeline. At 25, you might already feel like you're standing alone at the starting line of a race everyone else finished hours ago. By 30, the sunk cost fallacy kicks in. You become so fixated on the years you feel you've wasted that your brain convinces you to throw away future decades. By 35, a phenomenon called temporal discounting takes over. Your ego demands a massive, instant, overnight victory to make up for lost time, which makes you refuse to take small, gradual steps because they just feel inadequate. But by 40, you realize the undeniable truth. The time passes anyway. It really comes down to this. You are comparing your messy, unwritten chapter 1 to someone else's heavily curated chapter 20. The timeline you're failing to meet is just an arbitrary, invisible deadline you absorbed from an anxious society. If building the reality you want takes 5 years, you might panic thinking about how old you'll be when you get there. But guess what? Those 5 years will pass anyway. You can either be 5 years older, finally living the reality you bravely built, or 5 years older, sitting in the exact same spot you are right now. All right, let's pivot to the solution in Section 5, the rewiring protocol. It is time to step out of the theoretical and into a practical 3-step behavioral framework. Because here's the thing, you cannot logic your way out of a biological freeze response. You can't just sit in your room and think your way into becoming a different person. You have to act your way out of it. So here is your complete clinical roadmap to recovery. This is exactly how you rewire the hardware. Step 1 is imperfect execution. Step 2 is identity uncoupling. And step 3 is microdosing effort. Let's break down exactly how you can apply these actionable steps to your life right now. Step 1. Imperfect execution. Right now, your amygdala thinks a flawed first attempt is a literal threat to your psychological survival. To fix this, you must lower the stakes to absolute zero and intentionally create absolute garbage. I mean it. If you want to write a book, purposely write the most cliché, terrible page of dialogue imaginable. If you want to make videos, record with awful audio and bad lighting and don't even publish it. You have to physically prove to your nervous system that creating something imperfect will not cause death. When you lower the expectation from genius to trash, the fear just evaporates. Step 2 is identity uncoupling. Listen, you have to mourn the death of the gifted kid and just let that label go. From this exact moment forward, you are a laborer in your own life. Treat your goals like a mechanical skill. Think of a carpenter building a chair. If one of the legs is a little wobbly, the carpenter doesn't have a massive existential crisis about their inherent value as a human being, right? They just grab some sandpaper and sand down the wobbly chair leg. Stop making your work a profound mirror of your soul and just fix the leg. Which brings us to step 3, represented by a very important number, 5. Microdosing effort. Because your dopamine baseline has crashed, trying to execute a massive 5-year master plan in a single afternoon is neurobiologically impossible. Instead, you must work for exactly 5 minutes. Set a physical timer, and when it goes off, you stop. Even if you feel a sudden burst of motivation, you stop. Why? Because you were trying to rebuild broken self-trust. By actually stopping when you say you will, you give your brain a tiny, undeniable hit of natural dopamine, proving to your subconscious that you can keep a promise to yourself. It's a real game changer. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the freedom of average, letting the fantasy die. It is time to let go of that massive, invisible backpack of childhood expectations you've been carrying your entire life. Because here is a brutal, undeniable truth. Unused potential is entirely fictional until it is converted into action. It's a ghost. It's an empty vault. That person you went to school with who is way less naturally talented than you, but who is out in the real world failing, learning, and making a fool of themselves, they are not wasting their potential. They are building it. Meanwhile, you're just standing there guarding an empty vault. There is an ultimate relief you need to feel right now. There is a profound, breathtaking freedom in finally accepting that you are just a regular, flawed human being. The world doesn't actually care about your potential. No one is monitoring your timeline. That harsh, blinding spotlight of judgment you feel beating down on you, you're the only one holding it, and you are completely allowed to just turn it off. So the crucial takeaway is this. Let the perfect fantasy you die so the real, flawed you can finally live. The flawless fantasy version of you, the one who never makes mistakes, who achieves massive success effortlessly, who started 10 years ago, is a cruel tyrant. It exists purely in your imagination, and it is actively strangling the real, tired, scared, but breathing person who is actually alive today. You don't have to be a prodigy. You just have to be willing to take one clumsy, imperfect step forward. As we wrap up this explainer, I have a challenge for you. What is one completely imperfect thing you are going to do today for just 5 minutes? It's time to stop guarding an illusion of greatness. Choose to take one clumsy, messy step into the dirt today. A flawed, stumbling reality will always be infinitely more beautiful than a perfect illusion. So get out there, set your 5-minute timer, and create some glorious garbage.